because relaxing is positive in itself. Yes, I've been unemployed for a month, but working at a job that I just didn't care about and did not need also. Something that doesn't make money, something that does. Not eating a lot right away in the morning. Your impulsive brain can take control when the phone is close. My life feels a lot more exciting and a lot less constrained. Welcome to the Willpower Podcast. All right, another solo episode. 2 weeks in a row. I know, crazy. Maybe I'm just lazy, but I didn't have any guests lined up. So it's probably a good time for me to begin getting on that grind again. Throughout the past year and a half, year and a couple months that I've been recording this, for 95% of the time, I've been pretty far out in terms of recordings, like 4 weeks ahead. That's been my baseline, is 4 weeks ahead. Sometimes I get even farther, 6 episodes in the chamber, but it's always at least 4. And now I'm at 0. So I got to record the solo episodes. It's the only way to keep it going. Anyways, you can be ready for a lot of guests to come on. I've actually been going on a number of podcasts. I tried out a tool called PodPitch just as a test. I wanted to see what would happen. PodPitch basically lets you go through their database, and it like searches podcasts based on what you're looking for, kind of things that you talk about, and then it will help you pitch to them through like cold email, just sending emails. And so I've done a number of podcasts. I shut off PodPitch because it was getting to be crazy. I was sending 20 emails every day. And so I ran it for like 5 or 6 weeks and then shut it off. And now I'm doing a number of podcasts. So you can expect some podcast hosts as guests in the near future, because a number of them are interested in doing my podcast as well as me doing theirs. And so that will probably be the nature of upcoming guests. Let's get into this episode though. So today I wanted to talk a bit about like routine while traveling versus being in a structured environment, a familiar environment. And then I have a number of other topics that have been coming up for me in relation to that, and then kind of complete separate things. So I was in Bali for 2 weeks and a half. Bali is an island, part of Indonesia. And while I was there, I was running a shit ton because I'm training, and I was meditating a bunch because I am committed to 2 hours of meditation every day following my Vipassana retreat, which I recorded an episode about maybe 5 or 6 episodes back, my experience with Vipassana and why I'm continuing the practice. So I was traveling, but there was a significant amount of work on my plate in that sense. There were still things that I had to get done every day. And I still felt a little bit unstable, unsettled, like I didn't have a strong routine and structure under what I was doing. And that could be a little uncomfortable. So now that I'm home, and I've been home for almost a full week at this point, back in Austin, Texas, about 5 days, it's getting nice. It feels nice to move my way back into routine and start to actually have the feeling that like what I'm doing is building on itself, and I can set into place things now that are going to actually pay dividends. Rather than when I'm traveling, it feels like any work I do or anything I do is just as good as what it is. There's no additional, if that makes any sense. So like when I'm here, I'm like, okay, if I like start to go to bed earlier, I'm going to build in that pattern because I'm at my house and it's like environmental, versus when I'm traveling, if I go to bed earlier one day, like it feels like it's very much isolated. It's like one day I went to bed early and that's great, but it's not like I can build on positive patterns because there's not that environment, because I'm only there for however long. So I did want to talk about ways to find routine and structure while traveling. And I know for me, there are certain things that immediately kind of fall out the bottom and just like I let go of. And so how do you deal with that? How do you create some kind of structure? And my first question is like, do you want structure? Is there a need for having it? Because sometimes having a vacation where you just forget normal life and let go and be a piece of shit and do nothing, that can be okay. And of course, I don't actually mean a piece of shit, because relaxing is positive in itself. Having time away can be helpful, but deciding what kind of traveling you're doing is important first. Like, is this something outside of my normal life? Or is this something that I want to integrate and be like a component of it? So for me, this was like a 2.5 week trip. So it was short enough that it could be seen as this is just a special isolated thing. It's not something I need to work into like my life and really like analyze and optimize. But if I was traveling for longer, if it was, a month, 2 months, 6 months, some people are traveling all the time, then it becomes a lot more important that you actually figure out how to live this way while you're traveling. So the things for me that I noticed were dietary habits, caffeine habits, and entertainment. Let's just say entertainment as a whole. So things like YouTube and Netflix, like when I was traveling, it was easier for me to just kind of be like, oh, it's, I'm in a new place. I don't have like any rules around what I can be doing. Can I be watching YouTube just because I'm bored? Sure. There's no rules here. Can I like watch Netflix tonight because I want to? It's like, yeah, maybe that's okay. Again, it depends on what kind of trip you're looking for. Caffeine, I ended up drinking way more caffeine than I normally do. Typically, I'm trying to like keep a cap on that, keep it to 1 cup a day or something less, even breaking it down into like only a few times a week, having days without it. And on this trip, I was just like guzzling coffee. It was like, a Americano and then a double espresso and then maybe like a Diet Coke in the afternoon. The third was dietary. That's where I definitely was just more lax. Like I was eating sweets and like pizza, pasta, all this kind of stuff. Just things that I wouldn't eat if I was building it into like a pattern. If I was like, this is a normal day, what do I eat? It would not be that. So I was kind of taking advantage of the fact that I was in a different place and I knew that I didn't have like rules set in and this wasn't normal. So again, this is like the thing you have to decide, which is like, is this trip while you're traveling, is this a normal day? Do you want this to be normal life or do you want this to be like a special thing that is outside of normal life? And that's important to decide that. Whatever you decide, that's going to kind of dictate how you live. If you decide this is a normal life, then you are probably going to want to set in some guidelines for yourself for how I'm going to live here. Am I working? Do I have like a training plan? Do I have some kind of exercise that I'm fitting in? Do I have other habits, routines that I want to make sure I'm hitting? Do I have like, a time that I want to wake up at, time that I want to go to sleep by, things like that. Versus if you're like, no, this is just pure vacation. This is a break from all of that shit. I'm not interested in structuring this at all. Then that's a completely different thing. And then you can be more lax and you can allow yourself these things with the knowledge that this is different. This is a separate part of my life. But also you have to recognize like you're not going to be productive. You might set in some bad habits. And yeah, that's just a calculation for you to make and for you to decide on. I've been running a bunch. So that was one thing that I was like, this doesn't, like traveling doesn't give me a free pass from my training plan. And it's been interesting to see, I hadn't weighed myself in like 3 or 4 weeks, probably longer even. Probably the longest I've gone without weighing myself in a long time. And I hadn't weighed myself. And that was because I didn't have a scale and I wasn't like seeking out a scale. And additionally, I'm running a bunch, not really lifting. So I wasn't really sure where my weight was going to be. Like I know I was eating pretty good on my trip, but I'm also running a ton. And since getting back, I've checked my weight and I'm probably like 5 pounds lower than I expected. And I do get DEXA scans every quarter. So I'm very interested to see what comes back, what my body composition is. I'm sure it's not going to be fun to see. It's going to be like a minus 30% muscle and probably a little bit of increased fat. Even though I've lost overall weight, I think my overall fat has probably gone up. But at the same time, losing muscle is okay at this time because with an ultra marathon, carrying upper body weight is not helpful. And it's actually significantly better for the run itself to be carrying less weight. So I will take it for now. We'll see. Maybe I'll work on putting some on in the coming months. But it's interesting also to just see that, body composition is within my control. There are levers I can pull. If I run a lot, I'm going to lose muscle and I'm also going to lose fat. Like I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to need to eat more. If I were to work out a lot, lift a lot, I probably would gain muscle. I probably would gain weight overall. Assuming that I'm eating more along with lifting more. But being able to see that like actions actually make a difference is huge. A lot of the times we go through life and we make changes and there's not like a clear effect or impact. It's hard because there's so many variables in our lives. There's so many things going on and usually we're not that scientific. Like I haven't been counting calories or anything other than keeping track of my runs. That's the one thing. But typically in my life, I'm kind of just like working out. I'm not really tracking my workouts. I'm not tracking what I eat. just eating what feels right. So it's hard to like really see that like, okay, my actions, I do these things and they have these effects on my body or my health or my overall well-being, whatever it is. So having this running plan and seeing like, okay, these are actually the miles that I've gone and like crossing those off, like it's a little bit more scientific. It's a little more clear of like, this is what I did and this was the effect of what I did, which is my literal body changing. And I'll get to see that with the DEXA scan much clearer, which may not be a fun experience for me. We'll see about that. Yeah. So again, that's just to say, if you want to make big differences in your body composition specifically, get to track what you're doing. So keep track of your workouts, make sure it's like you're doing it in a repeatable way, in a way that like it has to be done the same way. Do good reps, keep track of your weight, keep track of your number of reps. And then if you want to go the extra mile, keep track of what you're eating, measure like, total calories, protein, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, you should be able to be very clear about putting on muscle or whatever it is that you want to do. Could be just losing weight. It should be very obvious and it should be able to make that connection immediately that, when I do these things, this is the effect. And then you can adjust from there. Work out more if you want to build more muscle. Eat less if you want to lose more weight. But make that connection first. Make sure it's clear how what you do affects what you're trying to change. Next topic is the fact that I made it through my first month of unemployment. And that comes with an asterisk because yes, I've been unemployed for a month, but I still have severance coming in because I had 8 weeks of my voluntary severance. So those are still flowing. And that kind of means it doesn't feel like I'm really unemployed because I still have money coming in from my company. So yeah, I wanted to reflect on that month of not having a job because I have not had that since graduating college, even before. So during college, I think I always had a job. There was one summer where I did not really have a job, but I drove for DoorDash and that was basically my job. It was like contract work technically. So I guess it is a job. But yeah, ever since then, I've never not had a job. So this is the first time. Graduated college, immediately had a software developer role. From there, went to Indeed, was at Indeed for 3 years. Now there's nothing. There's no, it's still weird when I go to bed. It's like I don't need to wake up at any specific time. I don't need to think about when do I need to log in? There's no requirement there. And it's kind of nice in that. I don't need to worry about, someone's expecting me to be in this meeting at this time and I need to have something to report back. There's just none of that. I literally have no responsibilities in that sense. But at the same time, that just means I have to place those expectations on myself because no one is telling me to do work. No one is checking in. There's no stand-ups. So if I don't do work, no one really cares. No one notices. So it takes away a level of anxiety in the sense that other people are expecting me to do things, but it adds a layer because now it's up to me and I have to be the one who is on top of those things. And yeah, I'm sure other entrepreneurs have had that experience. At this point, I much prefer what I'm going through right now. I much prefer this thing where it is I am keeping myself accountable. Additionally, I have a coach who is very helpful in that. And we just meet once a week. That in itself is very, very helpful. But other than that, it's just me. It's just me keeping myself accountable. And again, I much prefer that to a boss keeping me accountable, especially at a job that I didn't particularly care for or particularly feel passionate about. Now it's okay, I need to work today, but here's the caveat. I actually am going to enjoy the work I'm doing. I'm actually excited to work on my app or work on the podcast or work on, researching for the podcast, things like that. These things are genuinely exciting and they don't feel constraining or take something out of me to do them. So my life feels a lot more exciting and a lot less constrained. Using that word again, constrained was the feeling I had when I was working because even when I had free time, when work was slow, there still was this feeling of I gotta keep an eye on Slack. There's this other stuff. I gotta just be aware of that. I have this thing that I haven't done that I don't need to do necessarily, but someone might notice. All these things that come out of just being out of integrity with what I was doing. Working at a job that I just didn't care about and did not need also. Because I don't want like there is a distinction here. Some people do work at jobs that they don't care about, they don't like, but they do it out of necessity. It's because they need the money that comes in every 2 weeks or every month. And I had gotten to a point where like I didn't necessarily need that money, at least not for, however many months. So this kind of disconnect from the money in terms of like me working, but not needing the money and not caring that much and not connecting the two. Like I'd gotten to a point where the money just felt like it just comes, like I just get a direct deposit every 2 weeks. And it was disconnected from like the work that I was doing. Whereas the ideal situation for an employee, which is kind of forced upon entrepreneurs, is like you get paid because of the work you do. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't do anything, you will not get paid. Like you won't make new money. But as a employee in the best situation, there's a clear connection. That's like I work and that's why I get paid. And you might love what you do at the same time, but there's still a connection that you are getting paid because you do your work. I had lost that completely. I was just like, I just get paid because I'm just cool. I'm just like lucky enough that I get paid. And that was partially because the work was quite easy at times and did not feel like it mattered at all. Like it didn't feel like what I was doing was anyone cared about, even like, bosses, people on my team. It was very outside of what felt like reality. And so now going into the full-time entrepreneur journey, it's like, this is reality. This is where shit gets real. And the days of money just comes to me are over. This is like, if I want money, I need to figure out how to make money come to me. And that's a complete different ballgame. So that's kind of the first month. There have been a few days where I've had this like realization that I don't have an income. I don't have, money coming in every month or every 2 weeks. And it's kind of like an oh shit feeling where I'm like, oh, this is real. This is like, I left my job and there's going to be a time where I do not have money coming in. And so I've had these oh shit moments where I'm like, this actually needs to work. And that's kind of a funny, interesting thought there, which is when I was working and I had these like projects I was working on the side, which none were very successful. I haven't been able to make a side hustle, like make any significant amount of money. And I think the reason why is what I'm talking about, which is as I'm working at my normal job and then I have these things I'm working on the side, there's never like a need for them to make money. And so they feel more like games, little projects, just things I'm working on that like I'm calling them businesses, but in my head, they don't really need to work. Like there's no need for the money to come in because I have this job and that covers everything. Like that's good. That pays for me and it also pays for the projects themselves if they require any kind of, investments or whatever, subscriptions, things like that. Now, this is no longer like a game. These are not little like game projects, toy things that I'm playing with. Genuinely, this thing needs to work because if it doesn't work, then I'm going to have some consequences because I'm going to, not have an income. And at a certain point, I run out of money. So there is a recognition there that like, oh shit, this is real. This is no longer a fun little game. This is a serious thing that needs to work. And my intuition says that realization is what will make the difference for me. That's what's going to make the difference between something that doesn't make money, something that does. Because something that doesn't make money, I can try to have it make money and then it's not really working. Okay, whatever. I'll keep like working on it in different ways, but I don't really care about the money part that much. Now, when something needs to make money, it's different. Like if all of my attention is on, okay, this needs to make money so I can live. How do I do that? There's a lot more that I'll be doing when there's a need there. So this is not me saying that everyone should quit their jobs and get to a place of need, but I think in the most extreme situations, having a need is going to change the motivation behind something. And doing something for fun is great. And I highly recommend just working on stuff because of the fun of it. But if you want to get out of a situation like a job where you are not happy and you're unable to make a business work, maybe what you need is the need to make something else work. And you'll never have that need if you stay at your job. All right, let's talk now about habits. We'll keep going. I know we talked a little bit about them at the beginning with travel and how to maintain habits while traveling and how to even think about that. But I want to talk about the most influential habits, we'll just call them like daily behaviors, just things that I just do normally or that I have done normally at certain times in my life. I'm not necessarily doing all of these at this moment in my life. The big one, the first one I thought of was the cold plunge. Cold plunge is like an awesome habit. And I didn't make this connection until this year because there was a period where my cold plunge was broken. And I was having a little bit of trouble sleeping. And what that meant was I would like, first of all, if I drank caffeine, I was off caffeine for a while. And if I drank caffeine one day, I would not be able to sleep. Like the first day I had caffeine after like 6 months off, I had a cup of coffee around 10 a.m. And no kidding, at midnight, I was still like wired. I was wide awake. And that was probably just because, my tolerance was so low that like that one cup just like fucking got me going. So coffee would completely, like I could not sleep if I drank coffee. If I was not careful with like nighttime routines, I would be awake. I would struggle to fall asleep. Like if I turned on a light at like, 30 minutes before I was going to go to sleep, that could actually throw me off. And then I'm like laying in bed and like, oh, why am I not tired? Then I fixed my cold plunge. Finally, I was kind of avoiding it, which is funny because it's easy to avoid fixing the cold plunge because once the cold plunge is operating, it means I have to start using it. So a big part of me was avoiding fixing it unconsciously or not. So I fixed the cold plunge and suddenly, as I begin using it again, I notice that come 9, 10 p.m., I'm like yawning and like struggling to stay awake. Like I'm getting so drowsy at night. And it took me a couple weeks to realize, but like it was the cold plunge. Doing the cold plunge during the day was like doing something to my body where it was just like setting my sleep schedule. And by the end of the day, I was cooked. I was so tired, so sleepy, even if I drank caffeine. And that became like a thing where like, if I drank caffeine, oh shit, okay, I need to do the cold plunge today. There's no, like, I can't skip today. So the cold plunge as a habit is like super powerful, specifically for sleep. I know there's a lot of other benefits to it, but that's the one that has stood out to me the most. It's also just like a fun discipline, a fun practice. Pretty hard to do, especially when you're starting out. It's like painful in the beginning. When you start using the cold plunge, and if you have a like significantly or sufficiently cold enough cold plunge, hurts your hands and your feet will be in pain. And that pain doesn't really go away for however long. So I usually do about 3.5 minutes. And the first minute is like my body's in the state of like, get out, get out, get out, get out. But then that goes away after a minute. But for the entire 3 minutes, when I am just getting back into the routine of doing the cold plunge, my hands and feet just fucking hurt. Like they're just in pain. It feels like your body is like shutting them off and they just hurt so bad. That goes away over time with use. So if I were to do the cold plunge for the first time in a few months tomorrow, I would definitely have that happen. The following day, I would have it happen again, lesser, and it would probably go on until maybe a week or 2 weeks. I would not have that happen. Like when I'm doing the cold plunge every day, I do not notice that. There's no pain involved. It's all just like intense discomfort. Like it's just cold, but it's not like painful. So that's one interesting piece of doing the cold plunge. So, and be aware of that. If you're getting into cold exposure, like that will happen and it's okay. It's okay to be in pain. It will go away if you just practice it and you just continue and stick with it. Don't quit doing that because it feels like that's never going to go away. Okay. The next one, reading 1 hour. This was something I watched. I saw it in a YouTube video and this was Bill Gates who said it actually. I saw this in like sophomore year of college. He said in this video that when he reads, he always tries to put aside a full hour for reading, whatever book it is, like just setting aside an entire hour. And when I have that as a habit, there are some periods where I'm doing that regularly. Like daily, I set aside 1 hour to read. Super powerful. It's really, really powerful. And it's a different experience of reading when you have an entire hour versus just picking up a book, reading it for 10 minutes, kind of putting it aside if you're bored. Because that full hour means like you're really invested, even from the beginning. When you start reading, you know that like I'm getting into this and there's less of this hesitancy around like really giving up your attention and focusing it here. Turns off the part of your brain that is thinking about like what else you could be doing. I experienced that. I was talking about Netflix earlier. When I was in Bali, there was one night where my friend who I was traveling with was out for the night and I was going to just watch something on Netflix and go to bed early. And I could not pick what to watch. I would like pick something and then 3 minutes in, I'd be like, I feel like I shouldn't spend my time on this. This is a waste of time. And then I would go pick something else. This happened like 3 times on 3 different things. So anyways, when you read for 1 hour, it turns off that part of your brain that's like, oh, should I be doing this or should I be doing something else? What else could I be doing that would be better use of time or more fun or whatever it is? So it putting aside the full hour for me lets me really invest and get into a book. And then obviously having an hour of time, you're going to get much more out of the actual reading because you're more focused. Your entire brain's context is centered around this book versus fracturing it into 15 minutes or 10 minutes or however long. Now, caveat here, this is not saying that you shouldn't read unless it's for an hour. Like, it's still totally fine to read. Like, recently I haven't been doing this, and that's fine. I'm still like getting a lot out of reading. I just am not putting aside entire hours, especially if you're reading for leisure, which is what I do at nighttime. I'll pick out like more fun books, things that I just want to read and less so where I'm like looking to learn from them. And for those books, it's like I just kind of dip in, and because they're fun, I usually am interested in continuing on, but they're not there for the purpose of like taking my full attention and getting the most out of this. And so I don't feel that reading 1 hour, it needs to be like the necessity. It's more of like, if you have the space and the time for it, this is going to be really helpful. You want to get more out of your reading, set aside an entire hour to do it. So hopefully that makes sense. Not eating a lot right away in the morning. And then I would also say not eating a lot late in the day. So moving your food window into like the middle of the day, not too close to sleeping on either end. So I found that eating in the morning kind of just like, I don't even know how to describe it. This happened yesterday. I woke up and I just like immediately made breakfast and it was good. It was a good breakfast, but it kind of like set a weird tune for the rest of the day. And I don't really know why that is, honestly, now that I'm thinking about this. I just know that it did. It did set like it was a weird start. I think it's probably a mix of like the blood sugar response where when you eat a big meal, your blood sugar is going to shoot up and then drop. So that's why you get drowsy after eating a lot. So it can kind of like tamper that early morning energy that you might get. And then, yeah, something just with like the anticipation of eating and then having that be over and then having this like, okay, well, what do I do now? And then with that energy you're trying to get into your workday, it feels very off to like have this go on. So that's why I say not eating a lot. Like, don't make like a really big, nice breakfast right away. And then you're like so excited and you get this breakfast and then it's like, okay, what now? I'm like full and I'm kind of sleepy and I'm kind of like disappointed because that's over. And now I'm going to try and go into my day like this. Like, it doesn't feel like it's the best way to start your day. So I would say if you're going to do a big breakfast, push it off a bit. Like, have it be after some other stuff. Maybe like work out first or do some work first. Do some work right when you wake up or do your meditation right when you wake up. Push off that big breakfast. If you need energy early and like that's just what your body's accustomed to, then just do like something small. Don't do anything crazy right off the bat. And don't do something like hyper palatable. That's my problem. I've made like a really good breakfast and I was just like, okay, what now? And then yeah, same with nighttime. That one's a little bit more obvious. It's like don't eat a big meal right before bed. And that's something I've struggled with where late at night I'm like, that would be good. And I know that, okay, it'll kind of put me to sleep so I can just go to sleep and maybe that's okay. But that's not the best way to sleep. That's not like a good way to go into a night's sleep is using blood sugar changes. So if your body is digesting a lot, it's going to be hard to sleep. And especially if you eat to the point where you're like full or overly full, it can definitely interrupt sleep. So when I am following both of those, not eating too early, not eating too late, I found a lot more success in my overall happiness, my overall sleep quality, all those things. Another obvious one is leaving my phone in other rooms. This is one I have been lacking lately. I've been struggling with this one. This is part of like traveling, just like resetting my habits and having my phone with me all the time. But today I did leave my phone upstairs and then I've been working in a room downstairs in my house. And yeah, it's a big difference. It's just like this, it's this out of sight, out of mind thing. It's like, I'm only going to like think about my phone and want to use my phone if my phone is there. And don't get me wrong, there are still impulses. I'll still like think about it, but it's much less Because if your phone is sitting there and you see it, you're going to think about, okay, what is this? A phone? What do I do with it? Oh, I like use it to entertain myself or whatever it is. Your brain's going to go through that whole process and it's going to be like, okay, I should probably pick it up and look at it. That wouldn't have happened if you didn't see the phone. So having the phone upstairs keeps it out of sight. And then when you do think of it, want to use it just naturally without even seeing it, the fact that it's up the stairs means that there is a significant amount of work that has to take place in order for you to actually satisfy that craving. It's like you have to get up, walk up the stairs, and in that entire time, like it's not even in the time that you're doing it, but in the weighing the options. Once you weigh the options of, okay, I have to walk up the stairs and do all this shit just to get to the phone, brings you more into reality where you're like, okay, I actually don't want to use the phone. Whereas if the phone's right here, your brain doesn't make that calculation. It doesn't like weigh your options because it's so easy. It can just do it on impulse. But when there's resistance in the way and it's going to take a little bit of work, even if it's just walking up the stairs, there's no time for the brain to make the calculation. Sorry, there is time. When there's an impulse, there's no ability for your brain to just do the impulse when you have to go up the stairs. It's too much time. So in other words, that got confusing, but your impulsive brain can take control when the phone is close. It can't take control when the phone is upstairs because phone's too far away. Different part of your brain has to come into the picture, and that one's a little bit more rational. It will think through, okay, and it actually makes a decision. A lot of the times we're just going on default mode, like we're not actually making a conscious decision about whether or not I want to use my phone. I'm just doing it because it's right there. This one's a really good one, this next one. And I recently found this. So I have not had YouTube on my phone for like many years. And it's funny when I talk about YouTube and like, oh, I use YouTube too much. People will be like, oh, just like delete the app. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like I've already done that. It's not like that's like the first thing I would do, obviously. So I've deleted the app, but you could still watch YouTube on any phone, just on the browser. And it's like probably a slightly worse experience, but overall it's still very easy to use. So this is also kind of obvious. So I shouldn't have come off all smug and like, oh, I know all the, the solutions, but you can just block the website on Safari on iPhones. There's an easy way to just block any domain. So block youtube.com and then boom, I cannot get on it. There's an option to allow it. But when I've tried clicking that, like when I go on to YouTube, there's an option, allow website. And I don't know why, but when I tap that, it does not do anything. So this is another one that similar to leaving the phone upstairs. You block YouTube. Now, when you go on and you try and watch something on YouTube, it's going to take that much friction to go over to settings, takes YouTube off of your block list. And it's almost impossible not to like think about what you're doing in that process and actually weigh your options there. Now, with that being said, that does not mean I am free of YouTube. What it really means is like, okay, now I just think of my computer as the YouTube place. But it is nice that the association with YouTube and my phone, I can like viscerally feel it going away. Like when I think about my phone and using YouTube on it, like my friend sent me a YouTube link the other day. I saw the message and I just immediately was like, my phone's not for YouTube. My phone doesn't do YouTube. So just breaking that connection has been like, that's a huge change. That's a really positive change too, I think. All right. So last topic I want to talk about is my app that I'm working on, because this has been a pretty significant focus past couple months, especially with leaving my job. So I went through a bunch of different name ideas. I had it set as Qualia for the longest time. And then I had a number of people give me feedback that Qualia was basically taken. There was another company with the same name and they're like a software-ish company. So it's not like a mobile app first, but the fact that they are software, the fact that they basically own SEO in that for that word. So like if trying to get ahead of them in the App Store and Google would like is not going to happen off the bat, take a lot more work to get there. So I began thinking of new names and I went through a number of ideas. And then just yesterday, I was out for a run and I put on a podcast. And this podcast was about mobile apps. It was someone who had like created a number of very popular mobile apps. Like I'm talking like hundreds of millions of downloads on some of them. And he was talking about his naming. And his names of his apps were all so simple and also like telling of the app itself. And so that's that got me thinking a little bit. I like turned off the podcast, let myself think, and then I opened ChatGPT and had it list off some options. So what I was looking for were like other words, slang words, things that people kind of think about when they think about habits. And the first one I thought of was rites, R-I-T-E-S, rites. I thought that could be it's like a little bit like interesting. It like draws you in a little, and it's still related to this idea of routines or things that you do regularly. And then I thought of, then I asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave me one option, which was grooves. And that one really stuck with me. And at this point, that's my number one option is grooves. So please leave in the comments if you have any thoughts on that name. My idea with grooves is you have these things that you do in your life. You have habits. You have just regular routines, ways of being and actions that you follow naturally because they've been done that way in the past. Those become your grooves. The more you do them, the deeper the groove becomes. It's very fitting in that sense. So grooves are just the actions that we do regularly. And my app is going to help you understand your grooves, create new grooves, strengthen them. Basically pick out the grooves that actually help you, the ones that aid in your quality of life, make it better, and then strengthen those, do them more, make the groove deeper. So that's my idea with that. There's a lot coming with the app. I'm still in a standstill with Apple. I'm just like stuck in place in terms of the beta testing for iOS. But while I've been stuck there, I've gotten a good working version of the app is almost at a point where it's like ready for the App Store. And so it may just come out, just that. I may skip the beta testing completely and simply offer the beta testers a free extra trial run because of their interest that they signed up for beta testing. I would offer that. But yeah, very excited for Grooves, which is the plan for the new name. Anyways, that feels like a good conclusion to this episode. We went over a lot of different topics today, just things that have been coming up for me. So things like traveling, maintaining structure during travel versus vacationing fully, letting go. Talked a little about like body composition and where I'm at, how running has affected me and how to get scientific with exercise and diet and health and setting your goals and actually doing things that will actually accomplish them in terms of the body and physical health. And then we talked about unemployment, living that life, being an entrepreneur, not having income, being in this like, oh shit moment all the time. And then some awesome habits I have. And then finally the app and talking a little bit about where we're at there. I will hopefully have the next one be a guest. I have a couple scheduled, and it looks like they'll be ready for the next episode. The next one is someone named Issy, and I'm very excited for that one. She seems like a very cool person. And then a couple others after that, a couple podcast hosts, routines or rituals. All right, that will be it for today. Thank you all for listening. Leave comments if you have any thoughts or questions, and I'll talk to you guys next time.